Alright, in this video we're going to be covering what gameplay tags are. So if you open up your project, go into plugins, you can add the gameplay tags editor. This is a plugin that Unreal has provided to us, and once you add it, you will then have access to the gameplay tags. Now what this does is it builds off of the idea of tags. Now if you go into any actor, you can search up tags within the details, and you would have the ability previously, before adding the plugin, to add in any tags. And what this is just a way to identify objects. So if you wanted to say something like player, that could be done in this way. However, with just a simple misspelling, you can start to run into issues where you can't actually compare very well. And we can see that a little bit right here. If you were to spawn in any actor, pull off of its return value, you can get its tags, you can set its tags, and then you can also compare its tags, but you would have to manually come in here and place in specific tags that you'd like to check for, and that always adds a degree of developer potential for failure. So we're going to be using the gameplay tags. I'm going to set this to the side for now. All right. So over here on the left, I've added in a new variable called tag container, set to type gameplay tag container. And if you pull off of it, you can do add gameplay tag, which then gives you this beautiful UI element. This is unique to the gameplay tags and added in with the plugin. If we go ahead and manage, we'll see that we can see it a little bit larger. That's about all this specifically does. But we can add in new gameplay tags. Now, the way that you add them, you see it says x.y.z. That's kind of the syntax for how you can do higher tags and then sub tags. So for instance, I have a team tag. There's A enemies players. If I were to type in here team.b, add new tag. Oh, sorry. You have to select the source as default. Add that new tag in there. It will now become a sub tag of the team, and you can just add a greater tag whenever you need. And that's just done by something like this. Okay, that's incredibly misspelled, but that's all right. So that would add that in there. You can right click to duplicate, add subtags, rename, and delete. All right, now where these really shine is with the ability to contain multiple tags. So we have the nice UI, and if we were to come in here to the add, we can then select specific tags or just the greater category of team. I could say, let's select players, and then I'll add team.players. You can't add a second one. However, you can't add a second one within the same UI element, but you can do it by adding another gameplay tag and then doing it right there. And if I were to come in here, I have a print function that prints the tags within a gameplay tag container. I can share my function library, so you would have access to this too. We come in here and we hit T, we can see it says team players, status, invincible. And those were in fact the two tags we added. And now that we see here, I did add what I said was status invincible. This is where gameplay tags really shine, is with multiple status. So compared to something like an enumerator, like this right here, if you were to try to have several status effects, it wouldn't go too well because an enumerator can only be one thing at a time. This is my own personal player states. And what this does is allow me to determine higher player states. And this is okay for using an enumerator because it should only be one of these at a time. But if I were to want to add something like more status effects, maybe you're poisoned and you're also on fire, you could do that with gameplay tags. Now, it comes with a couple of ways to compare. There's the has tag, has any tags, and has all tags. This checks against one tag. You can either select it yourself or make it into a variable. And this checks against two containers against each other, and the same with two containers. Now, this gets a little bit interesting. We'll pull this up here. If we were to, let's say, come in here, set the default value of the tag container to something like fire, and then we are going to check the has tag status. This will print out either true or false if it has it or it doesn't. We'll see that it says true. So we put the default value to be status.fire, and we're checking against status, and it says it's true. And it is true because status.fire does contain the tag status in it. But if we wanted to check specifically for the status.fire, we would have to make sure that the exact match is selected. And then running that through, it would be false this time. So that's where things can get a little bit messy if you're not double checking the exact matches versus just checking if it has a tag. And I'd recommend being careful about that and properly debugging and checking whenever you are doing comparisons. And another way you can actually compare is by using a switch. So I'll clear out all of these. If you do the switch on gameplay tag container, you're given the ability to add pins either there or up here, right there, and it gives you cases. Now, what are cases? Well, you can select any type of tag. So we can select multiple in this case. Maybe we want to see the status on fire and you're also on the player's team. So whenever we were to come into this switch, it would check if our tag container did have that, it would fire off of this output. This is really useful in the case of checking for teams. So enemies, and we'll do another case that is checking players. So we can have some type of ownership. You would have your enemies. You can give them a tag that would be enemies. And then maybe you would have some type of a projectile hit them. And it would come in here. It would check. It would see, oh, this tag owned by this actor is an enemy. So then we need to maybe go apply damage or something. But these cases are quite useful and quite powerful. They can get a little bit messy if you start to add in too many, because then you would need the very specific tag of team.players and status.fire and status.invincible to fire out of this output. However, it is still a very useful way to apply statuses, apply teams and ownership, which I will cover a way to go further with specifically teams and ownership using interfaces in the next video. So I'd recommend you go ahead and watch that. Thanks for watching. Feel free to ask any questions if you have any.